Hello, you're watching Middle East Matters here on France 24. I'm Nadia Massi in Paris. In the show this week, when will the Strait of Hormuz be open for business again? A shaky ceasefire may now be in place, but for the moment, maritime traffic through the crucial waterway remains at a virtual standstill. Indeed, there's now fresh evidence that the IRGC has laid mines inside the strait, not a move that is likely to encourage shipping companies to make the journey. Well, we will get some analysis in a moment, but first, our report by Emerald Maxwell.
Despite tentative agreements to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, the shipping route remains fraught with danger. A chart published by semi-official Iranian news agencies on Thursday suggests that the country's Revolutionary Guards have been planting sea mines in the strait since the outbreak of the war. The chart shows a large circle marked danger zone in Farsi, as well as the recommended alternative routes, which will take ships further north through waters close to Iran's mainland.
All ships intending to transit the Strait of Hormuz are hereby notified that in order to comply with the principles of maritime safety and to be protected from possible collisions with sea mines, they should take alternative routes.
According to the Hormuz Strait Monitor, just 5% of usual traffic has passed through it in the past 24 hours. Typically, 60 ships traverse it on average per day, transporting approximately 20% of the world's oil supply. In its proposed peace plan, Iran has said it wants to retain full control of the strait and force ships passing through it to pay a toll. A demand that would violate an enduring principle of international maritime trade, that of freedom of peaceful navigation, an ancient idea codified by the UN. Iran's proposal has been strongly opposed by the region's leading exporters, for whom the strait is a critical trade route. The implications would also be severe for Asian buyers, including China, Japan and India. Europe is less dependent on Hormuz oil flows, but would still feel the impact on energy and fertilizer prices. And on Thursday, European leaders slammed the idea.
It's in the vital interest of Italy and of its European and Western partners that freedom of navigation be fully restored on the conditions prevailing prior to the 28th of February, so as to normalise the tense situation in the markets for energy, critical raw materials, fertilizers and other products essential to our economy.
Iran, meanwhile, has threatened to once again halt all traffic in the strait in response to Israeli bombardment of Lebanon Wednesday, which are described as a ceasefire violation.
And with me now on the programme is Adi Imsarovic. He's a lecturer in energy systems at the University of Oxford. Hello, and thanks for speaking to us here on Middle East Matters.
Hello, Nadia.
Look, we have this tentative ceasefire in place now, but nonetheless, as we saw in our report, there's been no sort of significant uptick in maritime traffic through the strait. Just give us a sense then, how serious is it that effectively it's been shut for 6 weeks?
Well, it's extremely serious, Nadia, because we are losing at the moment about 11 to 12 million barrels each day. That's over 10% of global demand, and it's a lot more than actually for your viewers. It's very hard to imagine these millions of barrels, but what they can imagine is situation during COVID, when the roads were empty, nobody was going on holiday, there was no business travel. We were losing about 8 million barrels. It was only demand rather than supply, but the effect on the road, what we could see, was about the same. So now we are actually losing a lot more than that. What is cushioning this blow is the IEA and international release of about 400 million gradual release of that oil. But we are about 2/3, if not 3/4 of that release has disappeared, has been eaten up. And some countries have benefited more than the others. Obviously, there's some countries that have very little or none. So its situation is really dire unless Hormuz opens. I think some countries are going to face very, very serious economic consequences.
And look, obviously, the ceasefire is very much a sort of moving story. We have these talks in Pakistan over the weekend. If the ceasefire is formalised, if it holds, how long will it take, in your view, for normal business, in inverted commas, to resume, both in terms of those shipping companies having the confidence to move through the strait, but also in terms of getting the energy production, the oil and gas production, up to peak in the Gulf, given the fact that they have been under Iranian attack for weeks?
Well, it's a key question, Nadia, and some of it I can help you with. For a start, I think opening of Hormuz would be great because there have been about 300 VLCCs, or very large crude carriers, trapped in Hormuz, each one of them carrying about 2 million barrels. So there would be huge volume of oil coming out right away. Now, it would take 4 to 6 weeks for that oil to arrive to refineries, but there would be a big psychological effect, at least for the market, that some serious supplies are coming in. Now, as far as the facilities are concerned, there has been a lot of facilities damaged, especially the refineries in the area. Pretty much every single large refinery in the Gulf countries has been damaged. Not all the damage has been reported, so we're not quite sure what. But from the crude oil perspective, I think we could see a return of crude oil relatively quickly. Some countries had to curtail their production, like the worst one was Iraq, probably volumetrically followed by Saudi Arabia. Probably some 3 million barrels odd of production has been stopped, literally. Kuwait, about 2.5 million barrels, and so on. Now, of course, you can bring that oil back, that production, very, very quickly. The problem is that the quicker you bring the production back, the more chance to damage the wells. So I would guess that most producers, such as Saudi Arabia or UAE, wealthier producers, will do it relatively slowly. But also, those countries also have relatively high reserves or storage tanks onshore, in their own countries. So they will be fine. So oil will be fine. The products, because don't forget that GCC countries are big exporters of products, in particular jet fuel and diesel. And these are the big shortages that we are seeing. And this is a very unfortunate time of year because it's spring season. Agriculture needs it very, very badly. Agriculture also needs fertilizers. And it's travel. People are gearing up for summer travel, and we've got a shortage of jet. So yes, it will be the sort of seasonality is also a little bit unfortunate, but if the Hormuz open, I think the whole psychology of the market would change, and we would see a big relief.
I want to ask you about this idea that we're hearing a little bit about from Iran of monetizing the Strait of Hormuz. It's being dubbed the Tehran toll booth. Before we come to that, though, let's just listen to an EU spokesperson on that very question.
International law provides for the freedom of navigation, which means what? It means basically no payment or toll whatsoever. Again, the Strait line and the Strait of Hormuz, like any other maritime lane, is a public good for all humanity. Which means what? Which means that the navigation must be free. Again, freedom of navigation must be ensured.
And I wonder what you make of this idea of a Tehran toll booth as it's been described. You know, Iran potentially charging something like sort of $2 million a ship to go through the strait. Could they do that? I mean, you heard the Europeans there saying, look, well, that's against international law. That's illegal.
Well, absolutely. But so was the war against Iran, was illegal too, and it happened. Many things happen and they're illegal and they're wrong. I mean, obviously, these are international waters, and no fee should be applied to ships coming through. The problem with the whole affair right now is that the Strait of Hormuz is quite clearly the only card that Iranian regime have in their hands, and they are going to try and control it very, very tightly. Now, I would just guess that it's, first of all, this 2 million, it's a rumor. Somebody might have paid, 1 or 2 ships might have paid. That's not really well established. It's not confirmed. There have been a number of vessels that went through free of charge on government-to-government deals. Maybe there was something on the back of those deals we don't know, but generally I hear this morning that like a small convoy of Chinese vessels is being formed to get through the straits. I think clearly the map and this whole story with the map is about control of the traffic and control, some sort of control over this whole affair with the United States and Israel. Now, I don't see that being resolved as long as there's no resolution to this conflict, because what we are seeing right now, Nadia, is just a pause. It's not a peace deal. If there was a peace deal, I could see potentially some resolution, because Omanis, who have been a party to these negotiations over the safe passage of vessels, they have clearly said they have no interest in charging anyone anything for the safe passage. But I think at this stage is more about control, and the idea of, charging vessels, I think hopefully will slowly fizzle out.
Yeah, I want to ask you a big picture, if we can, about the precariousness of the oil and gas sector that's been so exposed by these Iranian attacks on the Gulf. Do you think that will mean in the months ahead, in the years ahead, that countries around the world will now say, actually, do you know what, this is a bit too risky. We need to be putting more money, more resources into renewable energy, perhaps into nuclear energy as well?
I would totally agree with that view. I think there has been a massive blow to the security of supply of fossil fuels, particularly LNG and crude oil. I don't think that's going to go away. In the UK, for example, in March, the purchases of EVs have doubled just in 1 month. Australia is also very similar, leading the way. I think developing countries are more and more going for EVs. Of course, on the other side of the equation, the oil producers, gas producers, and oil producers are absolutely desperate to do something. There's a lot of talk about building alternative pipelines. I think by the time we build those alternative pipelines, most of us will be driving EVs.
Okay, really interesting. And just a final reflection for you then on the markets. We've seen so much turbulence in the price of oil. You think we're going to see a calmer few weeks? What's your sense?
I think we have seen oil's come off $10 to $15 a barrel, but is it calmer? No, it's not. I follow very technical sides of the front end of the curve, which you don't see on the screen, where dated or physical Brent is trading, where differentials are trading. That's still outrageously expensive. If you want to buy oil or products right now, delivery in the next 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, you're going to pay massive premiums over the prices that you see there on the screen that are normally futures prices. So the actual physical oil is trading at a much higher level. Just to give you an idea of the magnitude, it's probably $30 to $50 per barrel higher. So if oil is trading at 100, you're probably buying physical oil at least $130 per barrel. But that's the price is obviously only one side of the equation. As I said early on, and you asked the really good question, if Trump administration, who were very anti-renewables, or still are, and who call climate change a hoax, they've started this war, and I think they couldn't have created a better advert for renewable fuels and for energy transition.
A real irony there, as you say, and really good to get your analysis. Thank you for your time. Adi Imsarovic talking to us there from the University of Oxford, and you've been watching Middle East Matters here on France 24. This has been Around the World.